Hi, everybody. Welcome to the City Girls Pod. And this is the show where we are recapping Sex in the City. And today we are talking about the 2-episode finale, An American in Paris, part 1 and un and dos. Very exciting. I can't believe it. We did it. We finished covering the series. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner. Jax is here.
Girl, I'm proud of us.
I am so proud of us. I really am, because it was a risk to do this. A mature content show. I didn't know if people would accept it, people would like it. And you've been so great, and the whole experience has just been incredibly positive, and it just shows sometimes it's good to take risks in life.
Yeah, and we navigated some tricky subjects on the podcast, and I love you, and our friendship has grown, and you're coming for another New York City visit, and we'll get to check out another Sex in the City restaurant.
Yes, and next week we are going to be doing our favorite episodes podcast as kind of cap off this least part of City Girls Pod, and then we'll be taking a hiatus for the holidays, and we'll cover whenever And Just Like That comes. We'll cover that. We're planning on covering both of the movies, the Carrie Diaries, all kinds of fun stuff. So it's not the end of City Girls Pod, but
oh heck no. And don't worry, Rachel will still be podcasting plenty this holiday season, and I'll be bugging her to let me join her. So we'll be back at it.
Yes. Yeah, I'm already starting to feel like this is a certain degree of panic.
I know when we were talking about should we take a little hiatus in between? And I was thinking about your schedule, and I was like, Rachel, I was like, I'll come on and hang out with you whenever, but you're doing a lot.
Yeah. I mean, last year we covered And Just Like That during the Christmas season, but it was December, which is a little bit lighter than October and November. Well, I can be strong, Jax.
That was one of those things though with And Just Like That, it was almost where we had to do it in real time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if And Just Like That had come out, I think you and I both would have been like, we can do it. But I think that since it seems like it'll come out a little bit later, it'll seamlessly flow into everything, hopefully.
I don't think they've even started filming it, the new season.
I don't think so. I think they're starting soon, but yeah, I haven't seen anything.
Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about this 2-part finale. It's An American in Paris. It starts with part 1, and we have Carrie deciding whether she should go to Paris with Alexander, and then she says goodbye to Big, and then she goes. And we also have Samantha giving a speech at the breast cancer benefit, kind of what happens there. Miranda isn't happy about Carrie going, and all kinds of other shenanigans happen in this part. What do you think overall of the finale? Do you think it's a good series finale and this first part?
I do think it's a really fitting series finale. I mean, as I'm like a broken record and talking about the Petrovsky of it all. Am I saying his name right, Rachel?
I think so.
Me and Megan were like, how do we do it? Yeah, Alexander Petrovsky. He's not my fave. However, I do think there's something really beautiful about this way that this wraps up, not only with Carrie's friendship with the girls, but with her relationship with Big and with New York City itself, and most importantly, her relationship with herself. So I think it's really great. This episode had me feeling lots of feelings. Some of them were, heart tug moments with her and the girls, a little bit of confusion and anxiety over Big, and then some disgust over Alexander and the way she's treated when she gets to Paris that I'm excited to dive into with you.
Yeah.
What about you? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good series finale. There's been some terrible series finales.
Yes.
We all know how I feel about How I Met Your Mother, but there's been some other not good ones. And then there are good ones. I think this one is pretty solid. The only thing that I wish they could have done a little bit differently is that I kind of wish it could have been a little bit more of the girls together for the finale, having it's they have little parts of each of the girls, but and it ends, the very end is them together. But I think this two-part arc could have been the four of them experiencing something more together. That'd be my only critique. But Carrie it is her show in the end. She's the only one in the trailer, in the intro. So I can understand why they went the way they did. And I think that Megan's comment in our last episode about the choice of Petrovsky, of Alexander, does make you root for Big more. And so in that sense, it was a strong choice. And I never thought about it quite that way until she said that. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it.
I thought that was really smart of Megan. And I think he is the only person that Carrie's dated that would push all three of the girls in this episode to be like, go get our girl.
Yeah,
To
exactly.
Big. They were not, I mean, it was always like they liked everybody else that she dated more than Big. So the fact that we're like, at this point, I mean, they did it.
Except for Charlotte. I feel like Charlotte is the only one that's always been more Team Big. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think you're right because Charlotte, I think, always felt on some level that Big was end game for Carrie. That she knew it in her heart somewhere. I don't know how. And that's very Charlotte of her, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
So they have this kind of last supper, and as she's going out to meet up with the girls, last supper, Big shows up, and he's been calling, and she basically says goodbye. She says, don't ever call me again. And yeah, so
she's screaming on the street, I don't live here anymore.
Yes. And in this, she is wearing I love this dress that she's wearing.
Rachel, I cannot. She is perfection in this dress.
Yeah. It's a pink flower dress with a like a V line, and she does have a jacket over it, but it's so pretty. I love the dress. I think I like it even better than the finale dress.
I do too. And I think Carrie's hair in these two episodes is really pretty. And I mean, she always looks gorgeous, right? But
yeah,
it's very, to me, what Carrie is. It's like this curly, big, beautiful. It's, curly that she talks about like in season 3 or 4 or whatever. Like, I just think it's peak Carrie here. It's interesting when Big shows up at her doorstep and he's like, yeah, you not returning my phone calls had me feeling like a needy chick. And like, oh gosh, I roll my eyes because that's so sexist. But it's also Big's way of showing his vulnerability. And I actually really felt for him.
And when she tells the girls, they are, kind of shocked. And she says, he says it's different, but he's the boy who cried love too many times.
Yeah.
Which I understand. I mean,
yeah, like we've been down this road with Big. How do we know it's different this time?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have put up with him as long as she even has already did this point.
Yup.
Yeah. So Charlotte doesn't want to say goodbye, but it's super cute. And we have Samantha is just struggling not only with chemo, but with this early menopause that she's having.
She's got a lot going on. And I love the way she's finally been able to open up to Smith and that they really are like this power couple.
Yeah. And I have not been through menopause myself or really known anybody that, like, obviously I've known people who went through it, but never like kind of walked with them and experienced, like personally. My mom hasn't shared at least that that experience with me. But it seems extreme. I mean, this seems like you need to see a doctor. I mean, I don't know if it's heightened by the chemo, but I mean, people sweating that much. I have never seen like it literally just like pouring down sweat.
Yeah, I wonder if it is like you said heightened by the chemo, but she's really going through it. And
Mhm.
it's interesting to see her working on this speech, and she's so full of personality, but all of a sudden she's talking about her cancer and she's doing like this standard speech, and Smith's like, "No, babe, like you can do better than that."
Yeah, yeah. I did think it was funny when she gets upset about the breast cancer cookie. That was very funny.
It was really, really funny. And it's like, I get it. Like, it's breast cancer awareness month now, and you see a lot of the same stuff. And like, I know that Kaylee, my friend Kaylee, who
Yeah.
Rachel and I had in the podcast, she was cautioning people to make sure that you know where your money is going at this time, because a lot of times these fundraisers are not always putting all the money towards research and towards people who are actually dealing with cancer.
Yeah.
So it's always these things where you're like, okay, is this just one of those, like with Samantha, I think she's like, okay, I'm not really getting anything out of these events. I want something that I can actually like relate to people and feel seen and heard.
Mhm. Yeah, you have to be careful with people co-branding the pink thing and trying to get profit off of it. But they kind of put up with Samantha and they say, we're keeping the cookies, they're already donated. So what else
Sorry.
can we do? So Carrie gets to Paris and she meets up with Alexander, and he's there with his daughter Chloe, who is very grumpy, very rude. And am I wrong that they were like kissing at the beginning when
Rachel,
she first goes in there?
Rachel, this needs to be addressed. I I have a very close relationship with my dad. I love my dad.
Yeah.
You would never mistake me and my dad for lovers.
Yeah.
The way Alexander and his daughter Chloe, they're canoodling. Like, I different
Like they
families
were
are affected. They
kissing.
truly.
Yeah. It was weird. I
The
was
way
like,
you
I
just
know we're
said it,
supposed to be in France, but come on.
Rachel. The way you just said they were kissing. They were, right? Like, I watched this twice just to make sure that I was not weirdly sussing out the situation. And then, okay, I wanted to ask you this, Rachel. Like, the way she treats Carrie is not like a daughter being rude to her dad's girlfriend. It's like a jealous ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, I agree. It was weird. I didn't get it. It's just
Nope,
like
no
what?
thank you. Papa moi, not for me.
Yeah. And I mean, just being disgusted at everything Carrie's interested in, that she's excited about the Eiffel Tower. All of it is just too much. Too much. It starts off on a rough note. And the thing that I think is a little bit weird about Alexander is you think as an artist, he would be more sympathetic to what Carrie's going through. He really is basically a bad man of business. It just happens to be art is his business.
Oh, I like you're
Yeah.
exactly right. You hit the nail on the head there. He really is that archetype.
Yeah. He doesn't care about her feelings or, what she's going through, or that that it, like, heaven forbid it be hard to move to a new country where you don't speak the language. I mean, it'd
Yes.
be challenging for almost anybody.
Well, and to your point about him being a bad man of business whose business is art, like you're right. He doesn't fit that archetype of like, yes, he's in his studio working late, but a lot of artists, it's like they're so consumed with that and they don't really know how to do the business side. But like all these things he's doing, they're very networky. Like, oh, I have a dinner and I have this and I have that and I'll eat light, but I'll come back and see you, and then getting caught up with that. Yeah, you're exactly
Mhm.
right with that. And the fact that he could have made sure to pick her up at the airport. He could have been waiting for her at the front desk. He could have been in the room with her. Like, there's just, she didn't even know where she was going. She's like, where am I going? And he's like, oh yeah, 625. Like, it's just, he did not, I'm not saying in a way of like luxury, which he did provide that, but he didn't provide a warm welcome for her.
Yeah. And it's not that it necessarily takes a lot of time, like literally him just saying, "How are you doing? How are things going? Well, what can I do?" Trying to be like more thoughtful when he hears that she's fallen, in the store, actually caring, like all of that only takes a few minutes, but he's just totally obsessed with this, with his work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sad to watch. And that
Hmm.
Carrie like doesn't fit in at all.
Yeah. And I mean, I think he probably thinks that, oh, I'm giving her this incredible, I'm letting she can be a, lady of leisure, all in Paris, the greatest city, a great city, and everything. But I feel like that kind of stuff can only go so far. You still have to uh communicate as a couple. You still have to, have a relationship.
Yeah. And especially when she just got there.
Hmm. Yeah, and if it was somebody like Charlotte, even though Charlotte did work for a long time, but I feel like her transitioning to being a lady of leisure would be different than for someone like Carrie, who's always just been more independent than Charlotte.
Yeah, she has been. And she's also had such an intense relationship with the city and with her friends in the
Yeah.
city. And now she's in a completely new city that she's never been to and doesn't speak the language.
Hmm. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. Writing duo Christopher Palaha and Anna Gomez are back with the second book in their From Kona with Love series, Where the Sun Rises. Dubbed as a modern Romeo and Juliet by the San Francisco Book Review, Where the Sun Rises has become a highly anticipated follow-up depicting multicultural romance, love, loss, and redemption woven into a family saga set in the beautiful islands of Hawaii. Though connected, each installment in the From Kona with Love series can be read as a standalone. The series falls into the genre of clean romance and is best known for its lush island backdrops. Says Publisher Weekly of the first installment, quote, Gomez and Palaha's descriptions of Hawaii are postcard worthy. The breezy pace and gorgeous setting will stoke readers' wanderlust, close quote. Where the Sun Rises promises to whisk readers away to the idyllic island of Hawaii. Protagonists Mele Moana and Adam Yates meet at the wedding of Mele's friend, Andy, where they are paired up in the wedding party to walk down the aisle together. Their worlds couldn't be more different. Mele is the daughter of a plantation worker, and Adam is the son of one of the richest men in Oahu. They do have one thing in common, though: big dreams. Dreams that will take them into opposite shores. But that's not the only obstacle they must overcome. Adam inspires Mele to face her fears, and she restores his faith in redemption. Yet, with love comes sacrifice, and the goals they've worked so hard for may end up tearing them apart. Ultimately, Where the Sun Rises is a story about overcoming adversity, the promise of young love, and the valor in letting go. Where the Sun Rises releases on October 11th, 2022, and is available at all major retailers where books are sold. In-person and virtual book signings will be popping up in Los Angeles and Chicago during the months of October and November. Make sure to pre-order your copy of Where the Sun Rises today at your local brick-and-mortar bookstore, and it'll be waiting for you to enjoy on October 11th. In the meantime, immerse yourself in the Kona world by reading moments like this. More information can be found here at vesuvianmedia.com/from Kona with love. That's vesuvianmedia.com/from Kona with love. Yeah, I mean the hotel. I forgot to write down what hotel it was. Was absolutely beautiful, and that view from of the Eiffel Tower from the balcony is incredible.
Stunning.
Yeah,
Yes. And I do see the excitement that Carrie has about being in Paris. Like that is
yeah,
very real. It's palpable. And Sarah Jessica
hmm
Parker plays it really well.
yeah. And you just recently went to Europe, correct?
Yes, I
Yeah.
did. Yeah. Yeah. It was a lot of fun except for a little stomach virus.
Oh no. Yeah, that's
but
too
I
bad.
really love it there. I there is a part of me um that I wish I knew the language. And I
Hmm.
can relate to Carrie in the sense that especially Parisians have this thing where it's like, oh, like if you can't keep up, like,
Yeah,
and I get that.
yeah,
Like I get that. I'm not expecting people to accommodate me, but they do have this like such a cool vibe that I don't really fit in with. And frankly, even though Carrie is cool, she's like New York cool. I don't think she fits with the
yeah,
Paris aesthetic.
yeah. And some people the it's just not a good fit, even outside, even within the United States. Like finding you you have to find the right place for you to live. Like it's and I have never felt the desire to live overseas. I'm both two of my sisters have lived in England. One still currently lives in England. And my sister, who is in England currently, has lived in Spain and Japan, all over the place,
Really?
which is great. But that just, I don't have a desire. I enjoy visiting. I have traveled a bunch of places, but I don't know. I just never really felt the desire to do that, to
If
live
you had
abroad.
another US city that you had to choose to move to, what would you pick? Because you travel a ton.
Yeah. Well, what would I pick? If I could, that's a good
And
question.
to live
I
in, not
have
to
liked
visit.
things about every single place that I've lived, or visited. I don't know. I mean, it's easy to say, Hawaii, North Shore. If I could live literally anywhere,
Yeah.
I would probably pick there. But it's so, I mean, the podcast would have to be significantly more successful for me to do that. But please keep
You're
listening.
like, but hey, you guys, we can do it from anywhere, Rachel.
Yeah.
So
Um, but I might actually pick. I really enjoyed visiting Tampa.
I love
And
Tampa.
that I loved the ocean there. It was a lot cheaper than Hawaii. And they had a really good food scene, and I have friends there. So maybe Tampa actually. I also really enjoyed visiting Austin. So maybe
Yeah, Austin's fun
Texas.
too. Austin's really
Yeah.
fun.
Um, someplace warmer than where I live now, I think. Someplace warmer.
You're like, yeah, just some place where I can.
Yeah. I don't know. What about you? If you were going to move somewhere else than New York?
Uh, ooh, okay. I would say, I would, yeah, New York's definitely my top choice, but I would say LA second. And
Yeah.
then this is random, but we could visit each other, Rachel, if we both did it. Naples, Florida. Naples and
Okay.
Tampa. So
Good.
yes, I mean, hey, if life circumstances change and you move to Tampa and I move to Naples, we'll be Florida girls.
Okay. That's good too. We got it planned.
We got a plan. And we can still do City Girls
I
Pod from anywhere.
I do I can't imagine living there, but I have enjoyed it anytime I've traveled to Los Angeles, I have to say. So
I
uh
know. I feel the same way. Like I don't know if I could if I see myself living there, but I always have a
I
great
have
time.
so many
Okay, so maybe
friends
City Girls
there.
Pod is in LA.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I just never felt the desire to live abroad. It's just not like when I submitted my mission uh papers, they call them, when you for my church, a lot of people really want to go abroad, and
Oh.
serve abroad. I did not. I knew it was going to be stressful enough and challenging enough. I was like, keep me here. I don't want to have to learn a language. I knew I wouldn't be great at that.
Well,
Uh,
and it's a big enough adjustment, I feel like for it's 2 years, right?
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and
yeah,
there's so many other things that are going on that adjusting to a
yeah.
completely new culture, I think would
So
be very difficult.
I was happy when I got Indiana was enough of a foreign country. I loved it.
Had
Don't get me wrong.
having been in Indiana, I would agree with you. There's
Yeah. Right. Anyway, so yeah, Carrie is, struggling. Alexander is late. He doesn't keep his appointments with her. He's just not very thoughtful. Uh, we also have her, like I said, falling in Dior, and she can't find the Carrie necklace, iconic Carrie necklace. And she's upset about that. She misses her friends. Miranda tells her to come home over the phone, and she's been thinking about Big, which is a big moment, I guess.
Yeah, sure is.
She has a message on her machine that I can't lose you, Carrie. I love you from Big, that Charlotte finds.
That was a great moment when Charlotte was
Yeah.
like, "Oh."
And Big says to the girls, he says, "You're the loves of her life, and a guy is just lucky to come in fourth."
I might have cried a little bit at that part
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, that was a good moment. That was a good moment. Um, we also, like I said, have Samantha working on the speech. Smith doesn't like her speech at first. He tells her to keep it real. And she is just sweating so much. I mean, and
Truly.
wearing a wig and sweating that much would be brutal because wigs are
Yeah.
scratchy.
Yeah, they're scratchy and everything's getting caught in there. And yeah, I had a lot of empathy for her.
Mm-hmm. We also have Harry and Charlotte pursuing adoption in this, and of course, the Charlotte has to do it with gusto because that's what she
She
has to
does
become kind of
everything.
obsessed with it. But of course, we know what happens with Lily. But
Yes.
and then uh, we have Miranda telling Big, "Go get our girl," and uh, and then Alexander gives Carrie a very fancy necklace, and uh, then you see Carrie with the necklace at the party, and she can't really talk to anybody. She's all alone.
Yeah, that's a difficult moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great that Alexander got her that necklace, but it's like he's missing the point. The Carrie necklace wasn't about, he asks, like, is it insured? And it's like, no, it's sentimental. It's not. And I think it sends her into a panic about what she's given up about her old life.
Yeah,
It's symbolic.
yeah. Um, Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/hallmarkies. So that's the first part of this episode. I mean, this finale. And then we get into part two. And this Carrie goes to lunch with Juliet, who is Alexander's ex, and she's an accessory buyer, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
This was
and
a weird lunch.
it was a weird lunch. And she tells Carrie that nothing else exists when art does.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that Alexander didn't show up at this lunch, and he was supposed to, right? And then he called his ex to tell her he wasn't coming, but didn't call Carrie. Like there were
Yeah,
just
that
so
was
many,
weird.
yeah, there are just so many things about it. Now I know Carrie is someone who is not, it took her a while to get a cell phone. It's not like she's on it all the time, but she does have one there, I believe.
Hmm.
So yeah, there, and the way his ex was like, well, how are you adjusting to this basically? Because she knows that, yeah, a
Hmm.
woman will never be a priority for this man.
Yeah. And like I said, I feel like he's not really your typical sort of free spirited artist either. That, I mean, I think Aiden was honestly more of like a free spirited artist
Yes,
in his
for sure.
furniture construction and just sort of his, wanting to go to the cabin and things like that, just be a little more chill than Alexander ever is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think there was a lot of, a lot of creativity in what Aiden did, and he definitely had that free spirit that Alexander does not have. Like he really, I'm sure he's a brilliant artist, not that we actually get to see any of it, but he's so consumed in the art world and networking and climbing that ladder and rubbing elbows with important people that's it's seemingly just as important as the art itself to him.
Mhm. Yeah, and Juliet, she tells Carrie that we had a wonderful marriage while it lasted. I just couldn't get used to coming in seconds. So,
Which is fair.
mhm. And I mean, and Alexander, he says that that he was always clear kind of about what he was offering and what he wanted, what he could offer in a relationship. And that's fair to a point, but he does keep missing out on things that he's committed to. So I don't think he's been 100% true.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like he doesn't tell Carrie, hey, I would love for you to be in Paris, but I do not know how much time I'm going to spend with you. Like I think, interestingly enough, I think Carrie, when she suggested Big that she go to Paris, I think Big could have said that to her and she could have said, it doesn't matter. I want to go. That's okay. But Alexander like sells her on the idea of Paris and makes it seem like they're going to get to spend a lot of time together.
Yeah. And he is like needy at times, but then doesn't appreciate when she appreciate her like he should. Like for instance, she meets these people, they're going to throw a party for her that love her book. And then he said he's having this anxiety attack, this panic attack. So she agrees to go with him to the party. And then he immediately abandons her. Uh, and she's just like, why? And then she misses the party. It's like, why did I do that for you? You don't even care.
This is when I sort of had like really was fed up with him. And I'm like, I think this man might just be a straight up narcissist. And I don't say that lightly. Like, I mean, it's everything in his world is about what people can do for him. And
Mhm.
instead of being excited that, oh my gosh, like Carrie is finding her own people here and that's going to be great for me because then she's going to be more independent and it's a good thing for him, right? But instead of feeling that way, he makes her come to the thing, says he'll never let go all night long, and then immediately we walk in the door and everyone's applauding for him, it's like Carrie's left in the dust. It
Mhm.
doesn't take more than a minute for him to drop her like a hot potato.
Yeah. 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 And I feel like he's so he's so unself-aware in such a frustrating way because he doesn't even apologize. He's just kind of like, why are you upset? He doesn't seem to understand. And if that's just a cultural difference or a little bit of a language difference. I don't know. There's just something that's not connecting. And he says, I thought I was clear all along who I am. And she says, I'm looking for love. I don't think that love is here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And also, how do you feel about how they deal with the fact that he slaps her?
So this is something I was really looking forward to talking about with you. I mean, this is always, I mean, any sort of violence makes me really uncomfortable. Um, I've always thought about this moment, and I've watched it many times, and like, how does it happen, and what is going on, and then Carrie almost tries to like explain it away to Big. The whole thing makes me really uncomfortable, and to be honest, I'm still like processing my feelings about how they handle it, what exactly happened. What do you think about the whole situation?
I mean, I guess I'm not excusing it by any means, but it does seem true to his character. I think it probably would have happened sooner with his character, to be honest. And so and it is kind of like a final straw.
Yeah, I think that's a good point about it seeming true to his character. Like, I don't see him as someone, and again, this is not me excusing it either. I don't see him as someone who's ever going to get to a place where he's like beating someone, because I think he's even like, I don't even think he's almost like not even emotionally in touch that he would even get to that level of like even anger. But I think he's just so like dismissive, and like the way he like swats her off and then like smacks her in the face, it's like it it's this weird thing of like people just don't matter to him. Like they just don't matter to him at all. And the way he apologizes for it, he doesn't seem that surprised by what he's done either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he you can see that he is remorseful for what he
Mm-hmm.
did. But he just kind of is basically sorry I got caught up in the moment. And that's not an excuse. I mean,
No.
there's no point where striking somebody is okay. Like that's
Yeah.
obviously terrible. And like I mean, it does make you feel for Big that immediately he wants to basically slug the guy. Like he's like that makes you endeared to him. It's
Yes.
true.
Yes.
It makes for a good ending.
And it's something that we know that Big would never do. Like he's
Hmm.
done a lot of really crappy stuff to Carrie. And Big is a playboy. Like Big is a classic playboy. But he would never do something like that to Carrie.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's interesting that this is the first time. Have we ever had anybody? Is any of the people that Carrie dated ever been physical with her? Is there ever? I don't think there's ever been a plot
I
where
don't
she was struck in any way.
I don't think so. And I don't think that I think the closest we've come is to I forget what season. You might have to remind me, but they're friends who the man was very verbally abusive, and it was
Oh
very
yeah.
scary
Sh-
that it might
uh,
escalate to that.
um Sharon,
Yes.
Susan Sharon, is that
Susan
the name?
Yes, good
Yes.
memory. Yes, yes. And that was a little scary, and
Yeah,
it
that
wasn't really
was.
handled with the proper care that
Yeah,
I
I
think it
agree.
deserved.
Yeah. I mean, Richard got pretty physical at times with Samantha, but I don't did he ever actually strike her?
No,
I'm trying to
Richard seems like one
remember.
of those guys that like hasn't, but you don't think he wouldn't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
there are
yeah.
guys that you're like, he would never. And Richard, it's like, I don't think he has, but like he might. And
Hmm.
that's again, he's my least favorite man of the series, except for Petrovsky for a reason.
Yeah. So yes. And then big. He finds her, gets very upset. He's climbing the stairs, kind of attack Wachowski. He says, "It took me a really long time to get here, but I'm here." So finally, it did take him a very long time.
Sure did. 6 seasons, baby.
Yes.
Hey, this is David from the Piecing It Together podcast, a podcast about movies and the movies that inspire them. For over 4 years, each week, a guest and I take a look at a new movie through the lens of what other movies we think were either an influence or connect in some other way. It's a fun, unique way to discuss films that leads to a great list of other movies to check out that either explore the same themes and ideas or maybe utilize similar filmmaking techniques. Including special episodes in our side series that twist the format, we've done over 200 episodes, so there's bound to be one on a film you've been thinking about and want to dig deeper into. So check us out on all the major podcasting apps and at piecingpod.com.
We also have in this episode, we have Steve's mom. We find out that she had a small stroke. And first, Miranda finds her apartment is just trashed. And there's a great scene between her and Steve, where she tells Steve that his mom can live with them. And that's a great moment between the two of them.
Yeah, I think this moment and then the moment that Miranda has with Magda, where Magda says like that's love. I'm like tearing up thinking about these two scenes, but it shows not only how much has Miranda grown, but how much she loves Steve and loves his family and that they are a family together. And it's like Miranda, moving to Brooklyn, the thought of that was a nightmare for her. And now she's saying, what do we have this big house for if not to taking your mom and to care for a spouse's parent when they're sick like that is such an act of love and sacrifice. And this was just, I thought, a perfect ending for Miranda and for Steve and for this whole story. It touched me deeply.
Yes, because his mom wanders away. And that's like a real thing. People that are caring for people with Alzheimer's, dementia, they wander and they can get lost. That happened with my grandfather. He was there visiting, and he actually like went into a neighbor's backyard, and one of their pool guys found him. And I mean, it was definitely very scary because it was hot.
He was okay.
He was okay. But it was a long search. I mean, we were very, very worried. And that's just not uncommon. If you ever see an older person that looks kind of confused, that's alone, that's probably what is going on. If it seems appropriate, then it's people are probably looking for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad they addressed that in this episode.
Mm-hmm. And you're right, that scene where she's bathing their mother-in-law and Magda sees her and Magda says, "This is what true love is." Beautiful.
Oh,
Beautiful. It is beautiful.
Beautiful. Like,
and because Miranda is not the most patient person in the world.
No, she's not.
She struggles with that. She struggled to get along with Steve's mother on a number of occasions. And so for her to be selfless and patient, I think Magda's right. That is true love.
It's true. So it really is.
Yeah.
Like, Sex in the City.
It's so
you're doing something. You're doing something.
Yes. We also have Charlotte and Harry. They are trying again to adopt a baby, and they have this birth couple into town. And they start talking with them, and it is clear that they're going to keep the baby and that they just wanted a trip to New York, which is brutal. It's brutal. The adoption process, because people sometimes kind of throw it out there as if it's just like, oh, well, you can adopt, for couples that are facing infertility. It is not only extremely expensive, but it can be emotionally grueling. And when you lose and when you don't get a placement, it you go through a grieving process for sure.
Yeah, this was another storyline that I'm so glad that they were touching on, because you're right, Rachel. People say it like it's the easiest thing in the world, not thinking about the monetary or emotional commitment that you're making to the process. It's just, and it was a weird thing. Like, I actually felt for that couple too, like being like, nothing is exciting. Like, we'll never get to go to New York if not now. But it also seemed very cruel for Charlotte and Harry. And it's just, it made me really sad.
Yeah, I mean, they should have been honest with them, and I mean, it's just not. It wasn't right what they did, to get a trip out of people that play on people's emotions like that. And Harry, he almost never gets upset as a human, and
Yeah.
he says, "How much more can we take? I'm beginning to think God lost our address."
Something I really loved about this is what you said is exactly right. It takes a lot for Harry to get upset, and he's usually helping Charlotte through these things. But they are such a good fit for each other that in this moment, Charlotte comes through for Harry and for herself and for her family. And it's like, no, that's not our baby. So then at the end, when it is their baby and she says, that's our baby, it's like, oh my goodness, they're doing it again.
Yeah, when they see the picture of Lily, they know they have that confirmation that this person's supposed to be in their family, and it's just a beautiful, lovely moment for the character.
Rachel, I am so like, especially in these last two episodes, she's done it before, but like Kristen Davis in the scene in the first part of the finale when they're at the table with Carrie and Carrie's saying, "What if I had never met you?" And Charlotte is just crying. And then this scene where she's saying, "That's our baby." Kristen Davis can just crack herself open and cry in a way that never seems overdone, but is also like just so emotionally in touch and beautiful. And I mean, I think in some ways, I think that while the show was running, she was almost the least recognized for her performance. But my goodness, it is spot on.
Yeah. And I think it almost helps the fact that she was by far the shining star of and just like that. And so we kind of looking back at this show with sort of fresh eyes, being like, she did a lot with a little.
Yes, exactly.
She really did. So we have Smith going to film a movie in Canada, and Samantha tells him, go and be with women there, have sex in Canada, and he's just kind of like
Canada.
But he's like, I don't think that I'm going to do that. Okay. And then he sends her not flowers, he sends her like bulbs, like flower bulbs. And he says, I'm looking forward to spring. And that was just the best.
I mean, I have to say, it's hilariously juxtaposed with the fact that he's doing all these sweet things and he's such an attractive guy. And then like he looks so goofy in his costume. Like it's just so funny. When Samantha has, which for her is a lot of growth, when she says, if you haven't already been with someone, like I would rather if you didn't, and she wants to be monogamous with Smith, that's showing, what an arc her character has had too, because she would have never said that before and never put herself out there in that way.
Yeah. And she says something that I forgot to write it down, but she says something to the effect of, you're the only man that I've ever truly loved, something like that, which is very sweet. And he flies back to her because he misses her, and he says, I love you. This is very sweet.
this this series, I'm telling you, like, especially, I almost feel like it didn't even, I mean, we'll talk about the ending with Carrie and Big, but like the way it it wrapped things up with Samantha and Smith, and with Charlotte and Harry and the baby journey, and then with Miranda and Steve and his mom, like the way it did such justice to these characters about it being so much more than like finding a man. It just how much they've grown, and how not only how true they were to themselves, but how they really evolved over the course of the series. I mean, it was truly beautiful the way they
Yeah.
wrapped it all up.
Yeah. And Big says that Carrie, you're the one. So that's how we kind of end her arc, their arc. Well, we get more in the movies, of course, but
Yes.
and then we have Carrie saying she's back in New York. She says the most exciting relationship is what you have with yourself. And you see the four girls back together, and the thing that I guess was kind of shocking, I thought, is for this show, the last scene, the last shot is Carrie wearing a giant fur.
Yeah. Yeah.
You would never, ever, ever
Never.
see that now, ever.
Nope. Nope.
And she says, "Look out, New York! I'm a coming."
I do have to say there was something that I loved about this last shot where it's Carrie disappearing into the New York streets, getting the phone call from Big, and we finally see what his name is, and it's John. And you know how she in the first episode met Big on a street similar to that, and all the stuff is spilling out of her purse. There was something that was very full circle about this moment, and also really celebrating the city itself, which is like such a huge character in the show.
Yeah. And we have some other fashion moments of this finale. We have a great scene where she's eating in a French cafe, I guess, where she's wearing a polka dot red dress, a halter top type dress with a black polka dots on it, which I thought was a really cool look. And there's this giant dog. I don't know what kind of is like the dogs with the wrinkles.
Yes,
I
they're
don't
really
know.
cute.
Yeah. And is it Matisse, I think, maybe?
I
I don't know.
think,
I don't
yeah.
know my dogs.
Neither do
but
I, but I feel like you were right.
Yeah, but it's a really fun scene where she's smoking and looking at the dog, and that was a good one. And then when she's going to help Alexander, she has a green kind of toolish skirt and a white top and a little jacket look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She really, like, every look in Paris was spot on for me.
Yeah. And then we see the ladies all together in kind of winter coats, winter ensemble. And like I said, the final look with her with the fur. It's a tannish kind of fur.
Yeah, I don't need to see that one again. Like I liked it, and just like that when she got to wear the big, beautiful gray ball gown that she has, and I think the first part of the finale, that she
Yes.
falls asleep in bed in when Alexander shows up late. And then I think she's in her old apartment, like eating French fries or something out of it, and just like that, or not out of the dress. She's eating French fries like in the window wearing that dress. And I think,
Yes, the Versace.
yeah, remember that? Yes, the Versace.
Yeah.
And I just think there's something so cool about, and when we watched the documentary of them going back into like Carrie Bradshaw's closet, and they have kept like so much of the stuff that she wore. It's like a museum.
Yeah. You could probably have a museum exhibit, you know.
Actually, they really should.
Yeah, of Carrie looks from the I mean, they probably have, actually.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's been some kind of thing. But yeah, that's basically it. That's the end of the series.
Oh, Rachel, I'm so glad we did this with each other. You're my
Yeah.
Charlotte forever.
Yeah. I am too. I'm really grateful, and I'm grateful to anybody who listened. Thank you. And we'll be back next week with our favorite episodes. And Jax, where can people find you?
At Jacqueline C. Tweets on Twitter and Jacqueline Collier on Instagram.
Great. And you can follow us at City Girls Pod on Twitter. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes to check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast at Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. It really, really helps us a lot. And it only takes a second of your time and helps people to find the podcast. And if you are watching YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our patron group and merch store where you can get City Girls Pod merch. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye.